If you're going to work and you don't want to give good customer service, then you are in the wrong place, or your head is screwed on so bad that you don't deserve a job. So you're either in the wrong job or you need to get your head examined. The whole idea of good work is to provide for others, to meet needs for others. And I don't think it's that hard to test the attitude.
Welcome back to the Today Counts Show with Jim Piper. Be sure to subscribe and follow the Today Counts Show on whatever platform you watch or listen. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Today Counts Show. I am your host, Jim Piper. The Today Counts Show is a show that talks about faith, talks about leadership. And I just got to start off by telling you that we talk about leadership because we have high expectations for this life. Our worldview is that humankind, was made in the image of God, and we have amazing potential, and we should live up to that potential regardless of our fallen state. And I had a poor experience just this last week on my way to teach a class about leadership. And I was stopping for dinner, and it was just an absolute bad experience. Well, what do you mean by that, Jim? Well, I would give it a C. Now, to me, a C is a horrific score for somebody who is selling a product or a service or both. And unfortunately, you might think this is dark or negative, but I'm just going to say it. I'm amazed how many businesses stay in business getting that kind of a grade. Now, I got plenty of C's in high school. I get that. My mind was already moving on. I was moving on to other things. But I left there and I said, doggone it, I am going to talk about customer service again. I'm not just going to rant about it. I'm going to talk about it. So, first of all, if you're somebody that listens to the Today Counts show, I can tell you this, you're not a laid back person, because we're not laid back people. We are people who really do believe that today counts. My attitude counts today. My actions count today. What I believe counts today. What I'm learning counts today. Today counts because it provides for my tomorrows. And so, all right, so we're going to talk about this topic of customer service. And in a minute, after I give you a proposition, I want to invite you into a 3-step process of evaluating your customer service as a person, as a leader, but also your team's customer service, your organization's customer service. I think the reason why some of these little mom and pop shops stay in business is because they provide excellent customer service. The reason why the franchise stays in business, many of them longer than they should, is because they have a proven product or service, but sooner or later, customer service will catch up to them and they will close down. And the only reason that they haven't is because somehow the cash flow keeps them going and they're stuck with a big old lease. Anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about the experience as I approached this establishment. The first thing I was met with on the exterior was not good. And then as I walked in, heads were down and they were doing all kinds of other things. I was surrounded by teenagers that were giggling and this and that and the other thing. And I know right now I sound like an old grouchy man, these teenagers. Actually, one of the things I love about leadership is, in fact, after this poor experience, I met a couple of young people, teenagers, who were already pursuing their own businesses. They were ambitious. I love it when young people are after something. But this was not the case. I'm not even sure why they were there. And then as I approached, so to speak, and we began the exchange of a product and a service for money, it was doggone obvious to the whole world that this person wasn't trained. They didn't know what they were doing. And as I went through the process, kind of stomached the whole situation, went and waited at the table, everything was not cleaned. It was just a really bad experience. And I don't know about you, but I work hard for my money. And I have an expectation that we're going to have a win-win exchange, that you've got profit margin built into your service. I'm the lazy butt that's not making his own dinner, so I'm going to pay you to make it for me. And so you should earn a profit from that. I totally agree with that. But if it's junk and you're asking for premium money for junk, then that's a lose. So anyway, here is my proposition. If you as an individual and your team and your organization, if you have a decent product, a competitive product or service based upon several factors that this particular podcast is not going to talk about, and you provide with it excellent customer service, you're going to win. You will win. People will find you out. Even if you don't have great marketing, the best long-term sustainable marketing is word of mouth. Everybody knows that because word of mouth now has become more sophisticated on all the different apps that we can rate your service, your product, social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if people do talk to each other in person, that's one of the things they do like talking about are the things that they experience that are good. Why? Because we just don't experience it that much anymore. In other words, the marketplace is saturated with C players. All right. So my proposition is if you will upgrade your customer service, you will succeed, assuming that you have a competitive product and or service. It doesn't even have to be the best, but it has to be competitive. So I want to walk you through a 3-step process of questioning, of evaluating, so that you can bring this kind of great service to your customers regardless of what you do, blue collar, white collar, whatever you do. And these 3 steps are 3 words. They're 3 words that have meaning, and all 3 of these words start with A. So I said I had a C experience, and that was on Monday night. I had a C experience on Monday night, which to me, when I'm exchanging money for a product or service, that's disastrous. So now what I'm going to suggest is here's how you get straight A's. You have 3 areas to get straight A's in to elevate, to upgrade your customer service. And if you do this, you're going to stand out against the competition. In fact, you won't even know that there is competition. All right. So the first one is to examine your attitude. Examine the attitude of your team, of your organization. Today, synonyms for the word attitude could be culture. It can be a willingness. Let me just put it this way. The first thing I'm looking for in attitude is do people come to work? Are they part of your team with an attitude to serve, an attitude to care? They may know nothing about nothing. They might not even understand their job, but they come with this ambitious, willing to please attitude. Tell me what to do, boss, and I will do it to the best of my ability. That kind of an attitude. The kind of attitude that doesn't come to work just to do the minimum, but comes to work to do the minimum and then some, and then some. So, take a temperature of yourself or yourself. Because if you're going to work and you don't want to give good customer service, then you are in the wrong place or your head is screwed on so bad that you don't deserve a job. So you're either in the wrong job or you need to get your head examined. The whole idea of good work is to provide for others, to meet needs for others. And I don't think it's that hard to test the attitude. Are people looking down? Are they doing the minimum? Is it that's not my job, or that customer's a jerk, or did you hear what that customer asked, or this or that? I mean, easily offended, all of those kinds of things. So that's the first thing to evaluate. You evaluate it with yourself, but you can also evaluate with the team. And by the way, you can do this with your team. I mean, you can do this with me right now while you're jogging or walking or driving or cleaning the house, or maybe you're watching it on YouTube. I don't know where you're consuming this. So certainly you can do it by yourself, and it's probably good to rehearse it yourself, to think through it yourself. But it becomes super impactful if you can gather, if you can huddle those that help you provide this customer service, and just say, "Hey, what is our attitude towards serving our customers? How do we feel about our customers? Do we like customers? Do we like serving customers? How so? Give me an example of something that you encountered with a customer today or yesterday or last week, and you loved it and they loved it and you both laughed, and there just seemed to be a win-win transaction that happened there. When you, Bobby, when you think of customers, what do you think of? When you think of meeting needs for customers, what does that look like? So what you're doing is you're testing the attitude. All right. The second word is awareness. Awareness. Carl Jung, the psychologist, said that with a lot of personal growth, a lot of us hit the ceiling in personal growth. We don't grow in our relationships. We don't grow in our leadership. We don't grow in our personal growth because we haven't worked on making the subconscious conscious. In other words, sometimes we don't even know what we don't know. I mean, obviously, we don't know what we don't know. Otherwise, we would know it, right? But we're not working at becoming more aware. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it's it. So once the attitude is moving in the right place, it floods over into a greater sense of awareness. Meaning, you begin asking this question: well, who is my customer anyway? Has the product and the service is usually directed to a a certain percentage of the population. It could be age related, it could be income related, it could be convenience related. There's all kinds of different factors where you're matching your product and your service to a potential customer. Uh, that's part of it. That's one level of it. But how often do you study what your customer wants? What are their expectations? What are their needs? How do you make the experiences with you memorable? Now, memorable is a two-way street. It could be memorably horrible, right? Now, I will go back to this place that I went to only because, for the most part, the end product is decent. And if I'm in a hurry, it works, and I'm not having to do the really bad fast food stuff. But I'm telling you, if I have another experience or two, even though it is a big brand name, I'm done. I'm at least with that location, because I don't know about you, but I've even learned with franchises, franchise to it used to be said that if your brand is strong enough, you can franchise it because you're providing consistency wherever people go. They'll know what to expect. I don't know that that's as true anymore, because scaling also has to do with quality management as well. But it's amazing to me how these franchises can fail. And the only reason some of them stay where they're at is because they're stuck in a long-term lease, and they probably have positive cash flow of some way, or they're keeping their heads above water, but they're not there because everybody loves them and they love their community. That's not what's happening. So, and again, we've talked about attitude. Do we even have an attitude that points north towards providing service? But how aware are we of the customer's needs? And we need to really, go through that. Is it important to customers? Are there certain things that are important to customers that we should be paying attention to? Maybe they're not that important to us, but if they're important to the customer, should they be? And I'm going to walk you through some examples that could naturally come from walking through attitude and walking through awareness. And that brings us to the third word, which is action. Once you examine your attitude and the attitude of your team or organization towards customer service, you'll probably get some action items out of that. And as you begin to get better at educating your team as to the needs of the customer, and then hopefully between the attitude and the awareness, you'll then have some action items that you'll begin to put into play. Let me give you some examples. If it comes to pure customer facing ideas, let's take, I'm going to take some low hanging fruit ideas that that will help us. So in the travel industry, meaning that you're on a road trip, right? So you're on this long road trip, you get tired and what have you. Um, One of the things that always amazes me is how business owners who provide travel conveniences somehow they do not see the most basic needs of a human being, as gross as it may sound, is for them to relieve themselves in a restroom. And the restroom is filthy, dirty, disgusting. How many times can I hear from the women's restroom to the men's restroom a mom say, Julie, don't touch anything. Don't touch anything, almost like in panic that the kid's going to get instant cancer because it's so disgusting. And I'll hear it in the boys' room as well. It's amazing to me that the business people think that their main need is gasoline and a snack. I would say something opposite, and I've got at least two examples to combat the ignorant, careless business owner. So one of the most popular, in fact, you can Google this. You can even Google this and find this out yourself. In national surveys, Buc-ee's, which is a truck stop that is located in some of the southern states of the United States. But Buc-ee's is considered by far and away the cleanest restrooms on the road. And they're known for that. And it's not just 5 or 6 stalls. I mean, there'll be dozens of stalls and they're cleaning them constantly. There are men and women that are standing by constantly cleaning these restrooms. Let me give you another example. If you're on I-80, if you're familiar with that, that is it starts at a junction of I-25 and I-80 in Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming, and you head west beyond Laramie and you head towards Utah and in Utah and such. There's another organization called Little America, and they've got billboards all up and down I-80. They advertise their ice cream cones, their hotel, their gasoline, little kid play areas, doggy parks, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that they're known for the most is they'll have some billboards that are just dedicated for this: the cleanest restrooms in the West. It's amazing to me.
Let's take a brief break from the podcast to let you know that our very own Jim Piper has released a brand new book called Story: The Art of Learning from Your Past. Everyone has a past, but not everyone learns from it. Jim unpacks lessons in this book that help leaders and learners understand the potential our past has to impact our present and future. Be sure to grab your copy of the book Story where books are sold. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
How some people miss this. So of course they're going to sell ice cream cones and pizza and get gas and stay the night because they're meeting some of the most basic needs. Sometimes we just make customer service so abstract that we don't even recognize that it's kind of simple. All right, that's an example. Let me use another one. Restaurants. When you walk up to a restaurant and they have glass doors, and it's obvious that those doors haven't been cleaned in days, if not weeks, maybe months. It's not just because the hostess forgot to do it. It's because it's not a value held in the culture of that restaurant. And here's what's scary about it. If I see filthy, dirty windows, I'm thinking to myself, well, I wonder what the restrooms are like. And I go in the restrooms, I usually find the same thing. Maybe it was cleaned 2 days ago, but who the heck wants to clean the restroom? Well, nobody wants to clean the restroom. And so it doesn't get cleaned because the leadership hasn't made it clear how you provide a memorable, positive experience for the basic needs of a human being. When I walk up to an exterior and I'm going to eat there, I want to eat somewhere that is clean. I have some clients and they literally have somebody that just goes out there multiple times a day, cleaning the windows. They have someone going in the restroom, cleaning the restrooms. And then how many times do you look at your table and you start wondering about your table, your utensils and the floor? And if you see grime and slime there, it's kind of hard to believe that the kitchen, because it's a cultural thing. You can't tell me that the kitchen has a different culture somewhere else. And we call that front of house, back of house, but they're one team. How are the employees dressed? Is he wearing the same apron that he has worn the last 3 times he has been there? I mean, is his shirt pressed, etc. The menus. I mean, goodness gracious, the menus. How often do you rub your hand against a menu and go, "Oh my gosh, how long was that there?" Right? I mean, this is customer service. Cleanliness is customer service. Professionalism. This may sound like, "Oh, Jim, this is like basic 101." Is it? Is it? Is it really? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't have time to get into today to get into management creating culture, but it's pretty obvious that the manager doesn't care about it. And if the manager doesn't care about it, it tells me that the owner doesn't care about it. And all the owner is looking at his daily deposits uh, compared to his expenses. All right, that's poor leadership, poor customer service. All right, well, let's talk about the white collar side. Let's talk about professional services. Sometimes, when you're in a professional environment, a large organization, you often don't work with the customer, so to speak, the one that writes checks for your services. Instead, you're in a supportive role. And so maybe your customer is another employee in the company. The question is, do you know who your customer is? Let me give you an example of customer service inside a larger organization. Um, what is your mode of communication? Is there an accepted mode of communication? I mean, what is it? When you communicate to one another, how do you do that? Do you do it by text? Do you do it by phone? Do you do it by email? Do you do it by Slack or some other kind of communication app? Does your organization have a clear guideline as to how we communicate to one another other than our face-to-face meetings? Do we have that? That's a customer service issue. On top of that, do we have expectations about what the response time, what is the professional response? Because let's face it, this is another example where leadership doesn't understand the complexity of customer service within a larger organization. If you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different modes of communication, you're going to have a problem. Acceptable communication. That probably needs to be narrowed down to, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 at the most. And then there needs to be expectations. So if you send an email to somebody in your organization, when will you expect to get that back? And I already know what your experience is. Some people are very responsive, and you're going to get a response back within minutes, hours, and certainly no later than 24 hours. Others, you may never hear from them again. Cricket, cricket, cricket. That's unacceptable. It's hugely poor customer service because you haven't asked who your customer is. You might think you're the boss, and those who work for you are your pawns that you move across the chessboard to get crap done. If that's you, man, I'm trying not to gag. I would say to you that if you want to have a servant leadership aspect, you need to understand how you can best serve those that are under your care. And that's a different way of looking at it. You can tell the tenseness in my voice and so to me, leadership is not positional in nature. Leadership is service of a different kind. It's service of a different kind. I'm going to say it again. It's service of a different kind. So if those who work for me are my customers, And then what are their needs? How quickly do they need to hear from me? Am I teaching them how to communicate to me? I mean, that's fair game. That's fair game. You could have expectations that are not right, are not fair, are not realistic. But this is what we do in customer service realms. Do you see your boss as your boss, or do you see your boss as your customer? These are great questions to ask, and they're just examples of what I mean by customer service. So that was a quick hot topic idea. But listen, if you want to succeed, you got to identify. You got to look at what is your attitude towards serving others. What is your attitude? What is your organization's attitude towards serving? And how aware are you of their needs and their expectations? I mean, you could have a great attitude about it, but if you don't know their needs and expectations, then you're going to be two ships passing in the night. And then finally, what are your action items? How are you going to get better? How are you going to improve customer service? All right. I feel much better getting that off my chest. Hopefully that was helpful for you. See you again soon.